Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to another stocked and loaded episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important hobby news, discussions, debates, opinions, info, and interviews with key hobby and sports dignitaries. Also, if you're good, you know we are going to give away something. Now, here's the guy that wanted the cards more than the gum. John Newman.
Welcome to episode 138 of Sports Card Nation podcast. A little bit of a different episode today. This is National Week. If everything has went well, cross our fingers. I am in Chicago right now. Arrived on Wednesday, so been there a couple days. Hopefully, if you're listening to this on show release, you saw myself and Brody the Kid again, if everything worked out okay, on the main stage yesterday. This episode you're going to hear today is part of HobbyPalooza, which was July 9th and 10th, and this was done on a Sunday night. It was a live Sports Card Nation version with myself and the guys from Pack to the Future, Chad, Ricky, and Timmy, and joining us halfway through, the hobby icon, the man that needs no introduction, as I always say, Dr. James Beckett. So it was the five of us talking about the national coincidence and, current market conditions and whatnot. So you're going to hear five people on the show today. It's recorded as part of the HobbyPalooza. I want to thank Bench Clear Media for having us do that, asking us to do that as part of that great event, and was glad to do it. And so we don't do a lot of Sports Card Nations live, if you will. We've done a few, but this was a live show that we did. And I figured with me being in Chicago, I'm getting audio for future podcasts, but leading up to the week, getting ready and packing and doing all that sort of good stuff, that I would run this show. And probably a lot of you never saw it when we did it live, so it's going to be brand new to you anyway. So it's only an hour of discussion between myself, Dr. Beckett, Chad, Ricky, and Tim from Pack to the Future podcast, and was glad those four gentlemen were, accepting my offer to go live with me as part of HobbyPalooza. This is that conversation from that event. We're not going to do a new release schedule on this week's show. Head over to www.sportscardnationpodcast.com. You can get all the new releases, or you could be at the National seeing them live in person. And we're also not going to do a hobby news What's Up segment. We're just going to run, the interview, the conversation from the HobbyPalooza Sports Card Nation Live Special Edition done earlier this month in July. So enjoy that, and hopefully I'll see you at the show.
The Sports Card Shop is your small-town local card shop with a global reach. Located in New Buffalo, Michigan, the shop is one of the most accessible in the Midwest. In addition to being an authorized Panini direct dealer, the Sports Card Shop carries all major trading card brands, including Topps, Upper Deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and more. With all that new wax, 500,000 singles, and showcases full of graded cards, you're sure to find something great for your collection, whether you're just starting out or a seasoned collector. The Sports Card Shop is your one-stop shop. So call us, come see us, or visit us on the web and social media. Our phone number is 269-469-0140. Website is thesportscardshop@moco.com. The Sports Card Shop is part of the MoCo Retail Group, connecting sports, the hobby, and people around the world.
All right, welcome to a special edition, a live version of Sports Card Nation. We don't do these that often. Every couple under my belt, but not our forte. But today it's going to be. I have some special guests with me for this live event. I'm going to introduce them. Chad from Pack to the Future podcast, one of my favorite pods, along with Tim as well. The three guys on the show. We're waiting for Ricky to jump back in. He's having some technical difficulties. I just got new internet, so I feel his pain. My internet prior to this, I almost don't want to say it, guys, because I might jinx it. And this one will rear its ugly head. But I've got new actually yesterday, and it's been great, and hopefully it stays great. We're going to have Dr. James Beckett, a man who really needs no introduction, will join us at 30 minutes from now, halfway through the show. He's going to jump in, probably talk some national stuff with him. For those that don't know, he's been to every national. I don't know how many people can say that, but he's one of them. And Ricky's here. There's Ricky from also from Pack to the Future podcast. Well, welcome. Stick around if you like.
Yeah, third time's the charm.
3, 2.
Yes. Well, John, thanks for having us on here while Ricky's getting set up. This is a blast. We're excited to jump on with you and chat some cards. Always a good time.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to give a shout out and thanks to Bench Clear Media, Breaker Culture, Mike Moynihan from Baseball Collector, Tyler Wilson for allowing us to be part of the HobbyPalooza event here, 2.5 days as we wind down. It's been great. This is the second time they've done it. And it was born, guys, last year when the National got canceled. And that group said, hey, let's we're no national, but let's get together and still have some fun. We can do, in a sense, a virtual version. And this event was born, and I'm expecting to see it every year, and I hope to be a part of it as long as they'll have me. And and you know, when putting this together, I said, man, I don't want to do this by myself. So I said, let's get some guys I like in here. And you were right there, and glad you came on and part of the show. So first thing we're going to talk about, guys, is the landscape right now. Since February has really changed. We've seen, depending on who you talk to, some people call it a crash, some people call it a correction. My response to either one is it really don't matter the terminology. It's the percentages, right? Whatever you want to call it, it's the percentages of the values going down, which they have for not everything, but a lot of things, even wax. I mean, wax is still not cheap, but it's cheaper than what the crescendo level we were at. We can get into grading with some of the high submission prices, at least on PSA and BGS front. And so people have to decide, like, hey, I might have to do things maybe a little differently than I did prior to this change. We kind of got used to that year and a half of stratospheric. Everything went up. It was like the Midas touch. You couldn't really do no wrong. So, you guys kind of, I've talked about on my show. I'm sure you've talked about on your show, but, different things in the current marketplace and landscape, hobby-wise, that maybe, you've heard other people tell you, hey, I'm doing this now, or something even yourselves have changed course.
Right. And, in brainstorming this over the weekend, Tim, Ricky, and I, we talked about different ways that we'll try and highlight for the first 30 minutes till Dr. Beckett comes on. But we've thought of things like trade nights and going to card shows. And, Tim and I recently had a box war that's going to air on our podcast next week. And, just shifting and pivoting from what we did in 2020, where the three of us were primarily buying boxes and then box prices soared. And so we had to change what we do to enjoy the hobby a little bit. And so we started grading cards just like everyone else. And I think Tim and I are probably huge culprits of the junk wax era that is now among us.
Nah.
We'll talk about Luis Robert later, Timmy. But and then when kind of grading shut down, we primarily grade with PSA and a little bit with BGS. And then when prices jump there, we're finding that we've had to shift again. And so we love hanging out and doing things with cards, just like everyone here does. But we also have to be reasonable with our money. So the hope was, well, what else can we do to really enjoy this and enjoy our cards that we all love, enjoy hanging out with each other in this great hobby community? So that's kind of where the topic came about. Let's see if we have a Ricky yet. We still don't. So Tim, hey, there's a Ricky.
All right.
We finally got you. Ricky, you have anything to add to that?
No, other than, we've covered on previous shows that our focus has been more to, as Chad mentioned, get away from buying boxes of cards and diving more into specific players or specific types of cards. And namely for me, I'm looking at older cards, maybe a little bit less expensive cards, because I think we're at a weird point right now. I think that we're still kind of at that point and we're slowly dropping back down. And I think a lot of sellers may not be ready to acknowledge that we are really in a crash or a correction. They're not ready to let go of their cards at the prices that are more realistic. And so in that, while I'm waiting for that period to phase out, I'm going after some of the cheaper cards that I've always wanted.
Yeah, I think it's a great time to buy. I mean, you make a good point, though, Ricky, is one of the things in going to the National, I don't want to talk too much National until we get, but it's going to be interesting to see what the dealers there, and there's going to be a lot of them. It's a huge show, 1,500 tables, so that no one's going to do it exactly the same. But are the dealers going to, honor that sort of market price, or are they going to really try to hold out to the last minute, kicking and screaming? Are we going to see deals prevalent on that show floor? But now, as far as all the secondary markets, all your selling platforms, eBay, Star Stock, and those, there's a plethora of them. We've seen those prices come down, as you said, and if you're buying, it's a great time to maybe pick up some cards that 4 months ago might have cost you 30-40% more than they do now. And so hopefully if you're buying, the problem is I picked the wrong time. Me and Chad were talking before we went on the air. Going to the National, I actually shut off my buying faucet for about 5 to 6 weeks.
I don't know how you did that.
It's not
I'm so impressed.
You know how I really didn't open. eBay's not going to like me saying this. Other than to print shipping labels for stuff I sold off the platform, I just didn't search anything. I didn't look at anything, and I just said, hey, for the next 4 to 6 weeks, I want to try not to spend money and just have that money and just build it up with the intention to spend it in Chicago. And assuming that the deals will be there that will match some of the prices we're seeing on the secondary market. Now, if I get to Chicago and kind of what we just talked about, the dealers are being resistant and holding out, I'll come home with probably more money than I anticipate. And probably one of the first things I'll do for the first time in 6 weeks is open eBay from a buying perspective. So.
Right.
Well, it's really interesting, John. Oh, go ahead, Chad.
Tim, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, you bring up a good point as far as will people correct on the seller side to the current market. I see in a lot of forums guys saying, I'm going to let this card go at, $2,000 when that's really the comp from back in February, March, right? A lot of people just have refused to adapt. And I think that's foolish and short-sighted. It is what it is right now. And in order for the hobby to just keep moving forward, you need the money to flow, right? So if nobody's selling, nobody's buying, you're just at a standstill. So I think it will be really interesting to see what happens moving forward.
Well, and I'm really going to be really curious to hear back from Chad. But for both you, John, and Chad, I do have a prediction. I don't know about the individual vendors and how they'll respond to current prices, market prices. But I would not go there expecting for any of these vendors to buy cards. I've heard it griping on our local groups that we're in. We've seen it in our very small local shows we've been a part of. Everyone is trying to trade. Everyone's trying to go vendor to vendor to sell. I think that you have an overabundance of sellers, and they all again, don't want to accept that there are as many sellers as there are at the moment.
That's so crazy, though. Like,
go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, no, I mean, because during market dips, I mean, that's when you buy. Like, you buy the dips. I don't like why is everybody trying to cut losses? I mean, you hang on to guys like Acuna. I mean, they're going to come back up, right? Like, you enjoy the ride on somebody like Ohtani. I mean, there's still ways to enjoy this hobby and find that little, edge, so to speak.
Quick break to hear from one of our great sponsors, Iron Sports Cards. We'll be right back after this break.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com. Or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Tim just bought a bunch of Acuna over the last week, and so everyone out there who's invested in him, if you don't know, Tim's
jump
cursed.
Now.
Yeah, and so Tim's the reason that he was carted off. What was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Whenever you listen to this over the past weekend, so we all have Tim to thank for that.
Yeah, Ohtani's next, by the way. So
No,
Oh no! Get rid of my card.
Well, Jeebers, the season Ohtani's had so far, like that is a whole season's worth of stats. He can, he might still win MVP. If it wasn't for Vlad Jr., he'd probably win MVP if he didn't play the rest of the year for whatever reason. Let's not wish that into existence and just have it be a hypothetical discussion. But I mean, it is crazy. That's the thing. That's one of the big, for an old guy that's been in the hobby like me a long time. It's the biggest difference in today's hobby than in yesteryear is. A guy goes down with an injury, a guy struggles his first 40 at bats, and everyone just is off the ship and scurrying. And like Tim said, if you still believe in a guy, like I think Luis Robert is still going to be a great player. It's a perfect opportunity to buy him. Now, I could be wrong, and everyone else or a lot of everyone else could be potentially right. But, that's individual decisions we have to make when these prices fluctuate. I didn't sell any of my Robert stuff, and I have quite a bit of it, because why sell it now? But I'm saying even before the injury, like why sell it? He's just starting his career. If you believe in what he's going to be, then you might as well wait and put it aside. So
right, and it's interesting. So thinking about players you may want to buy. One thing that I've done over the past week, just in kind of getting back to ways to hobby without the expense, as opposed to me going on eBay every day and buying cards, taking a step back and looked at football. And I said, hey, you know what? And I started doing some research. What players do I think are going to go off this year? Who would I really enjoy watching and love to see? And do more of the research aspect and then start to browse through cards. And at least it's pumped the brakes for me so that I'm not constantly buying when I'm not wanting to be. And baseball is one of those things. Tim, I'll let us on. Yeah. That's what I show you guys. But yes, you're spot on with that. But Tim really led a lot of us, Ricky and I, on to Luis Robert last year through that same type of thinking and going about it the same way. So I guess really this last week I've tried to piece together ways just to get me to stop buying stuff before the National, John.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, you can take a page out of my book. Just don't do it. It's hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm making it sound like it's like, I'm not a smoker, but it's probably like trying to quit smoking, right? You still crave and it's just, when are you going to, most people who try to quit at some point, at least the first time, something happens and they cross that, they go back to smoking again. So, we'll see. I mean, this is, as fast as the hobby exploded, it's not as fast. I mean, like, Tim said, we're kind of coming down. It's not overnight, but it is coming down. I don't think we're done yet. That's another discussion. People are like, are we at the bottom yet? I don't think we are. I don't want to make politics out of cards, but it's true. What's happening in the real world, not that the cards aren't the real world, but happen on real world macroeconomics affects disposable and discretionary incomes, and then in turn affects, sales and the hobby. And, I was in Dallas last month, and one of you guys mentioned, everyone on the non-dealer side of the table had their backpacks or their cases, and we're asking the dealers, you buying, you want to look at any of my stuff I'm selling. And, when we were crescendo, and that was a fever pitch, right? Dealers like, yeah, let me see what you got. Let's work something out, right? And what I heard at that show, and that was, like I said, a month ago, was, some dealers were blunt honest. I'm like, hey, I'm not a great show for me. Normally I would, but I'm going to have to probably pass at this time. I don't even want to see something that I really want and know that I'm not going to be able to pull the trigger on it. And, I even heard a few dealers say, listen, I'm not in buying mode. If you want to work maybe a trade, you see something in my cases that's caught your eye, that we can go on that level. So it was a different tone in the room in Dallas a month ago. I think it's progressed further lower as far as prices realized. And so when we get to national, which is now 3 weeks away, where is it going to continue down, and what's going to be the temperature in the room? Are dealers, some dealers are going to bring money to buy, right? I do shows myself, and there's a guy that usually sets up next to me. It's very funny. He doesn't bring any cards. He literally sits at a table with a sign that says "I'm buying," and he pays for the table, one table, and people just line up, and he buy some stuff. Not something I would do. I buy, but I also put my cards out there to sell. He just there to strictly to buy. Talk about different ways to hobby, but that's his approach. And so,
no, I didn't know Nat Turner went to card shows like that.
Or Brian Gray,
yeah, exactly.
Well, Brian Gray, you'll see him. I mean, that's what he does, and he's good at it. You know what I mean? And a lot of that stuff goes into their products too, as well. So he's not just buying for, let's say, personal gain, but business gain as well, as part of Leaf's releases that are going to be in the future. So, it's going to be interesting, especially, the national is a beast unto itself. Let's be honest. I call it the Super Bowl of the hobby. And so sometimes, it's going to be interesting to see if what's going on, will the national differ anything from what's going on outside the room, because it's the national? We'll see.
You mentioned trades in Dallas, and I've been very intrigued by trading, not only with dealers, but also trade nights. Just watching content on YouTube. Card Collector 2 just showed his new card shop and his trade night, and that just looked like a blast to me. And talk about cheap ways to hobby and something that would be a ton of fun. I'm really hoping that people are willing and able. I've heard these stories at the National of people doing trades. Tim, you went to a form of trade night, I think, in Dallas earlier this year. But that's something I'm super excited for as well.
Was that the one that was held at the strip club for Tim?
So I've got a real funny story about that if people want to hear it. So
that story.
My parents, they're not really on Instagram. When I opened up a bunch of boxes last year, they signed up for an account and they kind of follow our page, which is where we primarily do our interaction. And I get a text message. This was when Tim was in Dallas, like on a Sunday morning. It was like 6 a.m. And my mom was like, hey, it looks like you were opening some packs last night and having a lot of fun. Hopefully you hit something. And I'm like, what? Like, no, I was in bed. Like, what's she talking about? And then I go and pull up our account, and sure enough, Tim was with one of his buddies. And I think that they were at like a sports bar, but perhaps there was another event going on in the background that is what my mother saw and was inquiring about. So I had some explaining to do that morning, which is pretty funny.
That's
not keeping my clothes on, right? So
yeah, exactly.
So just to respond, Carlisle asked, does he buy vintage or modern? I think he's asking for Brian. If it's
Brian,
Brian,
yeah.
it's more modern. If it's Nat, he really both for Nat. Brian's going to be more modern. I don't want to say that he might buy maybe some vintage if potentially for a repack, but Brian leans more modern, and Nat leans kind of both ways to answer that question. So yeah, we're going to see. With buying, like I said, I haven't bought in 6 weeks, really, which is crazy even to say that. And I'm hoping that maybe I will take some money home from Chicago. So time for another quick break to hear from our new sponsor, Collectible. But after that, we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s and Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mats, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for investing in the hobby. Just download the app and sign up with the referral code SCN to get your first share free. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
I know you guys haven't shut the faucets off like I have, but have your guys' buying been affected by anything we're seeing now?
Yes, 100%. As I mentioned earlier, I think that we're still in a phase where I don't think the sellers realize how bad it is for them yet. I think as PSA cranks out more of that backlog, we're going to see those prices drop even more. So I've held off on a lot of my buying because I believe it's only going to get better and better from the buyer's perspective. But overall, I'm still buying stuff. I'm still buying, finding old wax to rip or finding specifically old cards to buy here and there. But it has gone down drastically for me.
Tim?
As far as, just staying active, I've been keeping tabs on a few cards on eBay. And, I think what I've noticed is that the rarer stuff, lower numbered stuff, is still holding its own. And if not just holding, still increasing in value. So that's the other side of it that I see. And so while there are some fantastic buying opportunities, there's also kind of a shift as far as where people are looking at cards and looking to spend. And I think, you just need to be prepared. This is a fantastic buying opportunity. And if you have the funds to do so, that would be the way to go in the hobby right now. And like you said, John, we're going to talk about the National with Dr. Beckett, but there is a massive fever pitch building for this. There's so much pent up energy, pent up frustration, all of it, and excitement too, just to get back into the swing of things. It's going to be a fantastic vibe there, I think.
Mm-hmm. I've even dabbled.
Some of this dip.
Oh no, go ahead, John.
All right, I think we lost. This dip we're talking about, correction again, terminology is what it is. Tomato. It's vintage cards too, which I didn't realize. Confess, I didn't realize to the extent until I was on with Mike Moynihan, who's actually part of Bench Clear Media, the Golden Age of Vintage podcast. And I was on his show, and we were talking about, what the modern market's doing right now. And he goes, John, I don't know, have you not paid attention? It's not just the modern market. It's vintage too. And he pulled up a graph of his 11, probably some of his best 11 cards, which are very nice graded vintage cards. And he's got it's all charted. He's got, what it was in January, let's say, market value, and then current times. And it's 30, 40, he said it's 30, 40% across the board. You have a few exceptions to the rule, your 51 Bowman Manos, your 48 Leaf Jackies, those cards that sort of are unswayed by current market conditions. But most other vintage, a lot of a good percentage of vintage, along right with modern, is dipping. And I didn't realize that. I didn't realize. I don't want to say I didn't realize it. I know maybe some of it, but I didn't realize that much and that that much of it, and that percentage wise. I thought it would be less than that, yet it isn't. And so, like you said, like we've talked about, if you're in buying mode, well, I guess there's two trains of thought. You might say, hey, we haven't reached the bottom of this boat yet. Maybe I should just wait even a little bit longer. Now it becomes timing. What's your timing? Do I wait, or is now the time to strike? Also, you got to keep in mind what card you might be talking about. With some, as we all know, there's more than other ones where you can wait and still be able to get it, even if this is the bottom. So there's just so much decisions to make in personally, and it's just interesting to see what everyone else will do, and what everyone else does as a collective is kind of what sets the tone for where we are in the hobby.
It does. And to echo what Ricky said earlier, it is a good time to buy. I mean, if you're looking for personal collection items with the dip, I've done quite a bit of that. And that's really why I've had a hard time staying away from eBay, even though I'm trying to save up money for the National. It's a great time to buy for your PC. The hard part is that those funds that I had that I'm trying to also grow at the same time, they kind of wax and wane. So it does. It makes it very tricky. It does, for sure.
So if Tim wants to help Chad out as he heads into National, he will end up without Tim's phone number on his backpack for all to see.
That's right.
I think I jinxed myself. I talked about the internet. I got new internet provider, and then it dropped for a second. Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, you're back. And Ricky and I made a pact that, John, if you drop completely, that Ricky and I are going to drop off, and it's just going to be an hour of Tim.
So nobody wants that.
So we have that pact in place, and we're ready to pull the plug at a moment's notice. But while John's getting his internet back up, Ricky, you're right. Like, I can't stop from buying things. I did buy a backpack that'll have like an LED digital photo frame on my back to carry around, and put Tim's lovely picture and phone number and place of employment on there, and anything else that we want to advertise.
Man.
I think that'll be a blast. So anyone who ever wanted to know what Tim's phone number was, or his boss's name and number, or Google review, you'll have the opportunity. You'll see it right there on my back.
We can just put up the text, call for a free diagnosis. Dr. Tim.
No rashes, please. Yeah.
No, I got to ask you. This has nothing to do with cards, but being with your profession, have you had anyone, because of the show, like maybe that you don't know so well, let me put it that way, ask you some medical questions, or I got this going on, what should I do? Have you got that yet?
I haven't had that. I've had it the other way around, where I'll be in clinic and start talking to patients, and like we both kind of dip our toe in the sports card water, like, and find out that we're both collectors, and then we end up talking a lot about sports cards. I've had patients ask me if they can bring in their card collection to their appointment, like to their actual medical doctor appointment, not to like refill a medication, but just to look over cards for that period of time. So
Chad has also signed documents to his patients and then marked it 1 of 1.
I can't deny that allegation. That is correct.
What was that? A kidney?
I had to draw someone and show them how a kidney stone formed, and I was like, "Well, this is good." I signed my name, and then I grabbed it back and signed it 1 of 1.
I've had a coworker that, I'm sure through just me telling them about my podcast, got excited and would bring in their cards to have me look at them as well. But no, we haven't really been noticed by anyone in our respective fields. Part of that, though, is, Chad and Tim are pretty specific with who they're seeing, and I am still working from home. So that makes it pretty difficult to be out and being noticed. I have noticed that when we're out at like our local card shows, a couple people will always come up and say hello, which has been an awesome experience for all 3 of us.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's.
Yeah,
He's in the green room. I don't want to make him wait too long. Like I said,
Right.
the gentleman that I don't know if you're in the hobby and you don't know who Dr. Beckett or what he's meant to the hobby, then you got to be really, really, really new. And even then, I don't know where you've been. So, but
Come see me
I
for
wanna
a
bring him
diagnosis
on.
of dementia.
All right, let's bring him on. Dr. James Beckett. Welcome,
Nice.
Dr. Beckett.
Thanks, John.
Hello.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, hello.
Back to the future.
Yes.
So we sort of tried to table as much of the national conversation for you to get here as someone who's been. I'm not mistaken, right? You've been to you haven't missed one.
Haven't missed a single one. I just the very first one was met with some skepticism, and but I was a big supporter right from the beginning, and it's fully blossomed, and I think this next one's going to be the best one ever.
We were just talking
I
about.
think so too.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
I was just saying we were just talking about how we've noticed it at local shows and noticed online that there's a little bit of a different feel in that the vendors are not as open to purchasing from the respective buyers. Do you have any anticipation of how that's going to be? Do you feel like there's going to be any amount of, I don't know, tension regarding everyone trying to sell and struggling to find someone to buy? Or is that not an issue when you get to something as big as the National?
It's absolutely an issue, but the issue is not they're not buying what the people want to sell or at the price they want. So, there's a correction in the prices that have gotten up when people are chasing other things. So dealers, they don't want to buy what was hot last month. They want to buy what's going to be hot next month.
Sure.
They're smart, but collectors want to get full price for their cards. So what I said on Hobby Hotline yesterday, I think Wednesday and Thursday are going to be bonkers. I think anything that's priced reasonably, or that maybe even not even priced reasonably, but really good stuff, really rare stuff, is going to be gone Wednesday and Thursday if it's priced reasonably. If you're still hanging around Friday, Saturday, Sunday with some cards, a dealer needs to be thinking, maybe I'm a little overpriced. Maybe I've got a price from February and today's price is lower if I want to sell it. Or they could just take it back home. And same thing with there may be some people, collectors / investors who are going to wait till Sunday to get a good deal. Very dangerous, because if it's something really good, it's not going to be there on Sunday.
Sure.
There'll be a lot of stuff there on Sunday. So guys, it's not one blanket rule. The hobby has gotten back to where it used to be of not everything goes up every month. Some things go up, some things go down, and you've got it. There's no substitute for education.
Yeah.
I like that point.
All right, another quick break to hear from 101 Card Shop. We'll be right back with Dr. Jim, Chad, Ricky, and Tim.
What doesn't one card shop do? From box, case, and personal breaks, there's always fire being pulled. They offer bulk grading subs, and their large store located in Strongsville, Ohio, offers an incredible selection of sports cards, non-sports, and authentic autographed memorabilia. Steve and family will treat you right. Check them out on Instagram at One of One Card Shop or on the web at oneofonecardshop.com.
Dr. Jim, I got to ask you, I don't want you to give away all your plans or your secrets, but when you've gone to every one, as you said, when you go in, like, you obviously going to buy some stuff. Do you sort of have like a game plan? Like, hey, I got like these 3 cards I really got to leave here in possession of, or you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants and say, hey, I'm just going to look, and if something, catches my eye, or, what do you do?
You guys are being so polite. I've listened to your podcast. You guys are being so reserved.
I don't know what's up with Chad and Tim. We were just screaming at each other yesterday.
All the time. It's nonstop. But for me, I used to be very structured, and I'm giving myself permission to be less structured and go to the show and just see. I have some appointments, but I'm not loaded up like I used to be. And I don't have any specific cards I've got to have. I'm not really there to sell, though. I'm there more to buy and just to buy interesting things. So if I could make a list, well, that'd be less fun for me. I used to have a list. I don't want to have a list anymore. I want to be retired. I want to walk around and see old friends. And if I see something that's interesting, put it in a stack and, make an offer to the person and I'm mainly buying now from people that I've dealt with at previous nationals. The last few nationals, I've had this kind of a free form, go through the dollar boxes and, and see friends. So it's good. So no, John, no, I'm not looking for a Leaf Jackie.
I am, and I found them. I just I can't afford them. That's
it's right behind my left ear. I know.
So maybe not a written agenda, but in the back of your mind, what's like the one thing that you in particular love to do at the National? It seems like there's so many different experiences that are out there for people, but in your mind, what's the one can't miss thing for you?
Well, there's three things I'm going to do. A successful National will be three things. One is that I'll have some interesting, shorter conversations with people that I don't know as well, that I'll enjoy meeting and just hearing from them. And then there's kind of another category of old friends that I'll spend a little more time with, maybe people I have on my podcast as I bring my portable microphone kind of stuff. And third, I'm just going to buy some cards. I had decades where I couldn't really buy cards. We had a conflict of interest policy. So it was don't touch, you could. And so now I can, if I feel like buying something, I can, and nobody's going to, he's buying that. No, just having fun. Those are the three things: buying some cards, new friends, and old friends.
I think that's a great approach. I mean, I think the excitement that I'm hearing is that people just want to meet up, right? Like post-COVID, get out there, have conversations again, shoot the breeze about cards and just have fun, right? I mean, we've been waiting to have fun with this hobby again for so long. And, I went, 4 years ago now to the one in Chicago. And I just really enjoyed browsing. I mean, it's overload, right? I mean, kind of like you said, the good stuff's, you really got to target it Wednesday and Thursday. Like you want to be prepared to buy, like you need cash, like anybody listening out there, you need cash, like forget PayPal, Venmo, you might not have cell reception. So, but I really enjoyed the time to browse. I was telling Chad, he was asking me about the VIP passes and if they were worth it or not. And I was like, it gives you that extra little window in the morning before things get crazy to actually just walk around and look without people being butt up in your face, so, yeah, leave time to shop. So,
are all you guys going? You'll all be there?
No,
I'm going.
It's Chad this year.
Yeah. Our schedules, with COVID, everything, we have to plan our schedule so far out in advance. And we initially all had the time off, and then it came a critical point when it wasn't a full go for the National, and we had to make some decisions. And so next year we'll hopefully all be there, but this year I'll be there.
But the good news is Tim and I know Chad's room number, and we're going to, one day before the National begins, one lucky listener is going to get to spend the night and have a sleepover with their favorite co-host or podcast co-host.
Yeah, your bed's still free, right? Like the extra bed in your room?
Oh, I tell you guys way too much information. There's
giveaways, and then there's giveaways.
Yeah.
My over-under for you guys for the first joke was 2 minutes. You guys went longer than 2 minutes without the joke.
Well, hey, you set us up. Like we were trying to be our best behavior, and you kind of teed it up there for us. So we figured we had to set the expectation.
Over-unders and I are not friends right now. So.
But we are living through Chad on this first experience, and hopefully Tim, Chad, and I will go together next year. We had a big discussion on what things Chad can be doing, ideas for Chad. If you find Chad, he will have personally autographed headshots of Tim for sale or for free.
For free.
One ones to chase in that set. So.
We're super excited to hear about all of Chad's experiences and super bummed out that we can't be there.
And it's to meet up with these people that we've met through podcasting and cards, just as you mentioned, Dr. Beckett. And that part is going to be a blast. And really, that's the main agenda item that I have. And then the cards will we'll obviously be there too.
What about coming to Dallas for one of the big shows here?
Tim did that previously. Tim booked a trip and then didn't tell Chad or I until I think 24 hours before he took off. And I think that's when Tim did a trade night at a strip club. As we were talking about earlier.
These shows, I've had a blast getting back into them because prior, we kind of got back in the hobby 2016 timeframe, and we weren't going to shows then. We all went as kids and we all loved them. And then getting back into them this year over the last, 5 months or so has been a blast. I'm texting these guys a couple times a week about different shows. We don't get a lot of them out here out west. We're out in Utah. And so we don't get a ton of them here. I saw Las Vegas had one just recently. It didn't seem like a big show, but I'm starting to travel for these
Denver
things.
Right now, but yeah.
Regardless of what we come home with card-wise is really, really fun and it seems like a great way to enjoy the hobby. And of course, it seems like thousands of people have known about this long before we have jumped on this bandwagon. So, yeah, answer your question. Yes, Dallas, I think would be a blast for us to go to in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
I think, John was there last time. I'm not going to do a hobby content creators dinner next weekend when Kyle has a big show, but the late August show, if you guys are in town,
okay.
I've already cleared it with Kyle to do another hobby content creators dinner on Saturday evening. John, if you're back, I don't know if you're going to love
Probably not, but I'll plug the event, guys. If you get that invite, like you kind of just did, man, it's an honor and a privilege, and it's a lot of fun and a lot of great conversation, and talk about meeting people you've never met before that you may have heard or seen. That occurs, and it's just great banter. Different, even different opinions. Even being into the one I was, it changed my mind on a couple of things, and that's always good. And it's fun. Plus, you got the show there as well, and if you get to go, I can't stress enough to see if you can do it to get it done.
I'll tell you, I did pick up on those images and the posts from John when the last content creators dinner took place. I was insanely jealous. And so if we are anywhere near Dallas in August for that show, we will absolutely reach out because that looked incredible.
Thank you. So that's August 26th to August 29th, it looks like, on their website. So.
Yeah. And it's going to be a 700 table show as well.
Wow. Insane. It just keeps growing. I mean, I think in March it was 500 tables. I mean, so it's
it was always more than whatever he said, because it's politically incorrect to have that many people in one room.
Oh, right. Yeah, no.
Sure.
Right.
Oh man. Yeah.
And you guys mentioned Vegas. The industry summit this year is having a card show kind of kick it off and lead it off as well. So I don't know how close, geography wise, Vegas to Utah, but probably closer than to New York, I'm assuming. So, if you can get even to the industry summit show, there you go. Little plug for them.
And I think that's the show that we just saw, isn't it, Chad, that was coming out?
Yes, I believe it was. I think that was the one that I just sent you.
So we'll definitely be considering that show. That would be a ton of fun. But no, I think that I don't even realize, though, how large these shows can be. And I'll be really interested to get Chad's take when he returns from National. We did a local show here in Salt Lake. And a couple weeks later, Chad went to a different show about an hour outside of Salt Lake. And that show was a little bit larger and a little bit more put together. And Chad just raved about it. I cannot imagine what one of these shows with 400, 500, 700 tables is like. I'm sure once you go to your first one, it's pretty difficult to stop.
Yeah, that one was a blast, even with only 30 or 40 tables. There's little kids selling cards. And so you go up and kind of chat with them and get them excited about it. And that's where I bought my first Pokemon card and had no clue what it was, and graded it through a grading company that I'd never heard of who happened to be on site just to get the experience. And stuff like that's fun. I mean, it's all about the journey of it. So Yeah, going
Speaking of
from a
grading,
20 table to a 400 or 500 or 700 one like Dallas will be nice.
Will there be
speaking
a
of grading,
table?
so yeah, go ahead.
Will there be a table at the National doing Box Wars?
No, so I saw those break out. So Panini, so David Adams, Steel City, those big card sellers, they have tons of wax set out. So you'll see like these little mini shouting matches like kind of break out. Like people will buy boxes and somebody will announce Box Wars, Pack Wars. So it's a spectacle.
Yes.
But yeah, I was just wondering, so what do you think about PSA and BGS being there? I mean, like, what's going to be the reception there? I mean, positive, negative? Are they going to get overwhelmed right now?
You said positive, yes. Negative, yes. Overwhelmed, yes. I think it's all the above. I mean, people, if there's no line for PSA, because if you stand in line, that means you're paying $300 a card or something like that. They're going to be disappointed, but there'll be people who are frustrated if there's a line at PSA or BGS, but it's a free world. So they have a PR nightmare right now, all of them, all trading companies, because it's just crazy. They can't keep up with demand, and even raising the prices is not quelled the demand enough, I guess. And they get this huge backlog, and they're going to be plugging away at the National, all of them. And there'll be people upset. Have
you seen the warehouse where they hold all these backlogged cards? For Dr. Beckett, I apologize.
I've seen the BGS.
Is it as scary as we all imagine?
The scariest thing is I have a few cards in there, and they have no idea where they are in there. They're definitely not getting special treatment.
Too bad.
It's so mind-boggling.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Let's hear from one of our other sponsors, but we'll be back with the rest of the program.
Pastime Marketplace has a line of graded card cases that are waterproof, airtight, dust-tight, and hardened to protect and organize your valuable collection. Each of our cases come with pre-cut and pre-formed foam, so you don't have to cut and tear the foam when you get your case. The pre-cut foam inserts are sized to hold PSA, Beckett, SGC, and CGS slabs. Store it all safely and securely with a case from Pastime Marketplace. Check them out at www.pastimemarketplace.com.
Here's a question for Dr. Beckett. John Keating asked you, Dr. Jim, the last set you completed.
I don't even know. Let's see. I'm not sure. I mean, again,
Put you on the spot.
We're talking more than 40 years. I mean, I basically quit collecting sets in the 70s, early 80s. And so what was the toughest set in the 60s, maybe 67s? Some of those high numbers. Brooks Robinson was a tough card. In the 50s, I don't know, 52, probably. I got a complete set of 52s, but that was not simple. It was a lot cheaper. I'm at 40 plus years ago, but maybe 52 tops.
That's really
cool.
There's
a debate in the chat room. I mentioned during the broadcast tonight, speaking to someone very well with Michael Moynihan about vintage has even dipped. He brought a graph out when I was on his show that some of his key cards have dropped down 30-40%. Some pushback in the chat room, which is good. That's what it's healthy, that are saying that it's not that much. And so I know you got your finger on the pulse, Dr. Jim, especially on the vintage side. I mean, how would you break that tie with Michael, with Mike, baseball card collector, saying, hey, this is affecting the vintage in a big sort of way too, and then others in the chat room are saying they don't see it to that level. So, I'll let you be sort of the tiebreaker here.
Well, I'm not a tiebreaker, but I just have an opinion. Basically, Mike's a savvy guy, and but what we're finding out in the industry now is that it's not, with the market movers and card ladder and all these kind. I'm going to do a whole episode about this, but cards are no longer, even graded cards are no longer fungible. If you say, I've got a BGS 7 or a PSA 7 that I want to sell, I think it's and if you want to sell it for less, there's going to be suspicion that it's a weak 7. And so I think there's a need now, if more than ever before, you're buying the card, not the holder. And some of this softness in the pricing is weak 9s that are selling for less. A strong 9 is way more than a weak 9 in PSA, BGS, any of them.
Right.
And so it's almost like not to grade the graders, but it's not sufficient to say, I've got a BGS 8 and the latest comps are this. If it's a strong 8 that's pushing a 9, then you're going to get a lot more for it. I mean, and you've seen that with some of these other services that are grading the graders and iAppeal and all that. To me, again, education is the answer. If I were a vintage guy, I would not be selling cards in a lull when they are strong for the grade. Let's put it that way. But if I'm going to take a haircut, why don't I take a haircut on a card that's a weak 7?
Right.
Which really wouldn't be a haircut. So again, I'm probably overanalyzing it, but Mike's a very savvy guy, and he's probably going to look at this as an opportunity to buy. And I know he agrees with me on, buying the card, not the holder.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic advice. I'll see that in the Jordans that I look at, like a PSA 9 is not just a PSA 9. I mean, like the collectors know, like, a centered 86 Fleer with great eye appeal is way better than, the off-centered 9s or like, the 9 with a
card ladder especially has trouble with that because they're trying to report all the sales and they don't have a category for weak 9s. They have a category for each grading company. But
so would you say like
it's sophisticated now to where it matters?
Would you say a website like Vintage Card Pricing becomes even more relevant now, where they give you like the range on a PSA 7, for example, and like the trend for PSA 6, 5?
Well, I mean, I'm not that familiar with that. Other than I can just tell you, one of the least popular things we did back in the day was have a price range for cards. People just want to know what the price is, and truly there is a range, and especially like you said, if it's and I think that's helpful. Again, education is key. More information is better. So if selling between, cards selling between 100 and 200, those are pretty different kinds of prices. And my guess is, if you were able to scrutinize each sale and know the details behind it, you'd realize that why there's such a big discrepancy. I just saw what you had across. There is a way to account for eye appeal. Everybody does it. That will. I mean, I don't want to blow it for anybody, but that's coming. That's coming. Because there is a way to do it. Whether it'll be universally accepted or whether it'll be one of the big grading companies that does this. But I did an episode about that. Eye appeal is going to be quantified and numerically rated.
Really? Do you think that that's the future, that these grading companies will actually begin assessing?
Well, either that or they're not going to be replaced, but it's incomplete just to say it's a PSA 9. In fact, even if it's a PSA 10, that's not even sufficient because what about a black label BGS? And so PSA 10 is not a perfect card. It's a gem mint card. Yeah. And some of them are as perfect as I can see, and some of them I'm thinking, that's not and they don't even have a 9.5. So it's coming, guys. It's coming. And so smart people are buying up strong 10s, strong 9s, strong 8s, and they're putting their weak 10s, weak 9s, weak 8s out into the float, and they're selling for a little bit less, and that makes it look like prices are going down. I realize prices are going down in some cases anyway, but that exacerbates it.
Okay. I hadn't even thought of that.
You're talking about like how PWCC, kind of rates their card, or like, Mike Baker is now grading the grades on a card, and somehow people do.
Right.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
It's coming. It has to, because it's more nuanced. The money is so big, guys, that you need more specificity. And that's not for every single card. It's just for some of these key cards.
Well, I mean, everybody's eye is different too, right? You know, like I thought mine was pretty good, but I keep getting PSA 6s back in my subs. So.
Well, to be fair, Chad, Tim gets a lot of strong PSA 6s, but he gets a lot of weak PSA 10s.
Yeah. I'm setting the high comps on the PSA 6s. So
his 5s and 6s, though, are strong.
Yeah, Mark Horrell makes a great point here, too. This is actually talking about Dr. Jim's content dinner. This came up during the analytics portion about how things are hard to track because a lot of these private sales too as well. So, I mean, what are you going to do, right? So you can't be everywhere at the same time. But are we going when you say, is Beckett going to have like a 5th subgrade, Dr. Jim, you know, the 4 they have, and then whatever they want to coin it, like eye appeal, you know, I mean, how does a grading company?
You don't need a 5th thing, John. I mean, basically what people are doing, they're put a premium on centering. You know, centering is the only one you can't really tell.
Yeah.
That you can tell from a distance. You know, if there's some surface slight, you know, it's a 9 surface or an 8.5 surface. I dare you to figure out what the problem is unless you get a microscope out. Mm-hmm. Now, if it's a 7 corners, even that, it means that there's a soft corner. You know, edges. You got to turn the card on the side to figure out it's got an edge problem, unless it's so. It really, the 5th grade. It's the preeminent grade to me is centering, because it's the one thing you can tell from a distance. Mm-hmm. And people say, I don't want an off-centered card, and 70-30 is not okay.
And that's my biggest fear when I get back these PSA 10s. I was kind of a convert from BGS to PSA during the last year, and that's my biggest fear switching over is I really have no idea how strong of a 10 this is for what you indicated as far as the eye appeal. I worry. We've gotten back cards, Chad and I, multiple cards where one's graded higher than the other, and we would take the lower graded card. It looks more centered. It looks better overall.
Yeah. Well, there's even known wiggle room, right, on centering that you can still submit and perhaps expect to get a 10 on centering, even though there's no subgrades on the slab. And that seems silly. Just as you're talking, like intuitively, where's the arbitrary cutoff that says, yeah, this is still going to be a 10? I think your point is an excellent one. I really do.
I think if you sent your card, I mean, again, I'm obviously BGS. What does the B stand for? If people send their cards to BGS and they get a 9.5 with 10 centering, what's the chances they're going to crack that out, send it to PSA to get a PSA 10, which the market currently in many cases values higher.
Yeah.
You know, a 10 centering, you know, and everything else a 9.5 or maybe a 9 on edges or something like that. You know, there's a good chance that could be a PSA 10.
Oh yeah.
Now, if a PSA 10, you're not going to crack that out to get unless you think you're going to get a black label or a BGS 10, and that's pretty dicey.
No, that was a big part of the talk right during COVID is, hey, crack out those 9.5s with the strong centering, and go get your PSA 10 if you're going to sell it, right? Because on the market it may have been turning for a better amount. To me, it seems silly.
Who knows what the future will hold? That's what it is right now.
Yeah.
Who knows what it'll be in the future?
But see, they're not. If it's a 9.5 that has 9 centering, they're gonna. You know, that might get put in the pile to be for sale, and they might accept a lower offer for that because there's no chance of or perceived as a greatly reduced chance to cross over.
Yeah, no doubt. It definitely was a cheap move, right? Like to avoid maybe the more scrutinized BGS system.
It's not cheating. It's just it's gamifying. It's
fair.
There's no crimes being committed.
Correct. Meaning I think that when I come to the word cheating, I'm thinking of, you know, when we submit it to PSA under that theory, you understand that it's no better of a card. It's just simply you're getting a better sticker label on it, right? And maybe to the true collector, BGS 9.5 is the better one to hold on to. Is all I'm saying. So
it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's my line. That's also a lot of New York. It comes from New York line. That is my line too. But hey, guys, we're up against the clock. We gotta sign off here in like 2 minutes, real quick. Actually, 1 minute. Pack to the Future. Somebody give out your credentials.
Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at Pack to the Future Podcast. That's where we're most active. You can go to our website as well at packtothefuturepodcast.podbean.com. We're always trying to get user interaction in. So, feel free to give us a listen and interact with us as well.
Yep. Dr. Jim, Sports Card Insights on all and every major podcast platform and everything in between every day with that show, 10, 15 minutes. Great stories from yesteryear and current in the hobby. It's a must listen for me, and it should be for you as well. Once again, I want to thank Tyler Wilson, Mike Moynihan, Bench Clear Media, Breaker Culture for letting us be part of HobbyPalooza. And on that note, we're going to kick it off to Breaker Culture. They're the next show up with Tyler Wilson. So head that way, folks. Thanks for joining us tonight, and the great banter in the chat room as well. Take care. All right. Hope you enjoyed that conversation. I want to again thank Dr. Jim Beckett, Chad, Ricky, and Tim from Pack to the Future Podcast, Bench Clear Media, Mike Moynihan, Tyler Wilson for asking us to be part of HobbyPalooza. That's where that conversation took place, and a great conversation about kind of current events, the national, and to get someone like Dr. Jim's back, with his for those that don't know, if you didn't know here, he's never missed a national, every one of them. And so to get that insight, you can't get it from anywhere else, truth be told. So hope you enjoyed it. Sort of a different episode. Next week will be more sort of back on par with what we normally do. Not sure of the format. I'm going to be doing some live interviews here in Chicago, and so I'm sure you'll hear, probably my guess is you'll hear, rather than one long interview from one person, you'll hear from a variety of different people from the show floor at the Donald Stevens Convention Center. So I got a feeling episode 139 is going to be sort of a mishmash from various hobby people all on one show to combine to make one episode. So it should be fun, should be interesting. Once again, if you're listening to this and you're here in Chicago like myself, assuming again all went well, I want to put that disclaimer. Please, if you see me walking around or just loitering about, don't be shy. I don't bite. Come on up, say hello. I probably have some swag, some stickers, or who knows what, poker chips or whatnot to give out. Definitely come say hi, and we'd love to talk hobby with whoever. So hope to meet many of you here in Chicago. With that being said, if you've traveled to Chicago, safe travels back to wherever you live, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Remember, the hobby is the people.